Towards the end of my senior year of high school, like many people, I went to prom. My group of friends and I weren't the type that you'd typically see at dances. We weren't like nerds or anything. We were just the more laid-back group and didn't get too wild. Since it was our last year at school, we all decided we'd go since it'd be our last opportunity. We all started getting excited, thinking about who we wanted to ask to be our dates. To clarify, my group of friends was all guys and there were 7 of us that are relevant to this story. It was around the time of year that the guys began asking girls to be their dates, or promposing as it's called. There was this girl named Kelly that was in a few of my classes that I was really into, and we were kind of friends, so I figured I had a good shot at getting her to be my date. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a pretty charming guy, so I wasn't too worried. I got the school receptionist to lend me a couple flowers from the bouquet on her desk, and at the end of the day I asked Kelly, and of course she said yes. All my boys ended up getting dates as well. At this point, we figured we had to go all out for this prom. I suggested that we rent a big party bus, so that was the plan. Then after the dance was over, we'd take the girls to my friend Damien's for the after party. It seemed like things were really shaping up well for all of us. Kelly and I started getting closer and began talking more, until eventually we started doing more than just talk. But you know, a gentleman doesn't kiss and tell. I got a nice suit fitted, all black, and by now everything was all planned out. Since I suggested the party bus, I figured I'd be in charge of booking it. Now, since we were all broke high schoolers, we didn't have enough to rent from a nice limo company like I had hoped. I found an ad on Craigslist from a guy specifically doing prom chauffeurs for really cheap, and his bus looked really nice. I managed to book him for the night, and figured out all the logistics with him and whatnot. One thing is though, he kept making sure there wouldn't be any adults on the bus, which I didn't see how that was relevant, but I guessed it had something to do with whether or not people would be drinking during the ride. We obviously planned on drinking before he showed up, but I didn't tell him that part. But once I confirmed that there'd only be kids, he stopped pressing me. Again, I figured since he was running his company off of Craigslist, he probably doesn't want to take any chances getting put out of business with any underage drinking. So the day of prom arrives, and my group of friends with their dates and I take pictures at this park near my house, where the bus was to pick us up. Everything went smooth, and after an hour or so, we snuck some nips and then got on the bus. The driver was a middle-aged guy with short hair, and he looked like the epitome of an average Joe. When I went to shake his hand, he just gave me a dead fish handshake, which kind of put me off. My father always taught me to give firm handshakes and to look the person in the eye, which was always an indicator of whether or not you could trust them. My dad never gave me faulty advice either. Nevertheless, we got on his bus and he took us to prom no problem. We all snuck some more nips in under our shirts, and the second we got to the venue we drank them. Prom was a blast. Kelly and I had some pretty real moments throughout the night, and mixed with the alcohol I think we really connected. Nothing relevant to the story ended up happening at prom itself, as it went like any other high school dance. Around 10 p.m., when people started clearing out, I saw our bus had come to pick us back up. Keep in mind, all of us are pretty intoxicated by now. A handful of smeared off nips will do quite a number on a high schooler. When we boarded the bus once again, I can still vividly remember the driver just glaring at us. I assumed it was clear we were drunk the way we stumbled down to our seats. He confirmed the address we were going to, my friend Damien's, and then we left. Now, I'm sure most people are familiar with party buses and how they have blacked out windows, so we could see out, but people on the outside couldn't see in. Since it was nighttime though, the windows were so dark I had a hard time even seeing out. Now, obviously that was just a simple observation I made, nothing to be alarmed about. Our drive back to Damien's was close to an hour, and after what I think was 45 minutes, I checked where we were on my phone since I couldn't see outside. It was then that I realized we weren't anywhere close to Damien's house. It wasn't even like the driver took a wrong turn. He was taking us in the complete wrong direction. I went up to the front and informed him of this, and he immediately snapped back at me, yelling at me not to tell him how to do his job or whatever, and that we'd get there when we got there. At this, I was starting to feel uneasy. I know sometimes limos will take a longer route, so that passengers can enjoy it longer, But I couldn't even rationalize that this was even a possibility given how far we actually were. I walked back through the bus and expressed my concern to Kelly, but she was so drunk she didn't understand what I was saying. Literally everyone was so hammered, I don't think they took me seriously. I honestly felt helpless. I considered calling the cops, but if I told them that a party bus was driving the wrong direction with a bunch of underage drunk kids after prom, I'm sure that'd go over well. I cupped my hands on the window and did my best to see outside, but all I could see were trees, no longer the populated area we once were in. And that was when I decided to call the police, figuring I'd rather get in trouble for underage drinking than go wherever this guy was taking us. I told the emergency operator over the loud music that I was concerned about a possible kidnapping, that we were in a big party bus and how our driver was completely ignoring the GPS. He asked me if I could describe the bus, and all I could say that it was black with dark windows. I couldn't give a license plate, the name of the company, or even the driver's name because I honestly had forgotten. They said they'd alert any nearby squad cars and to hang tight and stay on the line. But a minute or so after that, the line disconnected because I had lost service. Fantastic. Even though I just had a full conversation with 911, not a single one of my friends had noticed anything was wrong. That was until the driver pulled the bus over abruptly. We just stopped on the side of the road. I didn't even know if it was the highway. The driver got out of his seat and turned back to look at us, and everyone stopped talking to see what was going on. I can still remember the song that we were playing, Don't Stop the Party by Pitbull. He screamed at us to shut the music off and to stay seated. At this point, I was pissing myself, and I seemed to be the only person that realized something really bad was about to happen. I just prayed that the police would find us soon. The driver opened the door, and 3 masked men with knives climbed in, demanding us to give them everything we had. Kelly started crying, and one of the men told her to shut up. By now, I think all my friends had somewhat sobered up as we rummaged for our wallets. One of the men came to me, and I told him I had no cash. He slapped me across the face and told me I better give him something, that they weren't leaving till they got something from all of us. The only other thing I had was my phone, which I really did not want to give him. I was grabbed by the neck and thrown back onto my seat, and this dude got right in my face with a knife and screamed that he'd kill me. I panicked and just gave him my phone. I literally had just paid $700 not even a week ago on the new iPhone. I was pissed. By this point, everyone on the bus had given these guys everything they had, including their phones. Then they told us to get off the bus. Everyone was scared except me. I was furious. I knew there wasn't anything I could do though. We all filed onto the side of the road and they all took off. I made sure to check for the license plate, but big shocker, there wasn't one. As the red taillights faded down the street, we were left in complete darkness. Every single phone was taken from us too, so there was no calling for help. I just hoped the police would find us soon. Everyone was freaking out, trying to figure out what to do. I stepped in and told them we were staying put, that the cops were on their way. This kind of calmed the mood down as I explained how before we were robbed I had called 911. On both sides of the road were nothing but woods. If this situation wasn't scary enough, the thick trees around us made it even creepier. Embarrassingly, I think I was more scared of the dark than I was of the robbers on the bus. I was noticing every little sound around us. Were there more people in the woods? I didn't want to freak everyone else out more. About an hour went by of all of us just sitting on the side of the road, still in our prom attire. I was kicking myself for cheaping out on the party bus and getting some weird dude off Craigslist. Everyone knows Craigslist is full of weirdos. By this point, everybody had calmed down, thankfully. Nobody ended up coming out of the woods, and eventually we saw headlights approaching. All of us jumped up, waving them down, and they turned the red and blue flashing lights on. Thank God. I did my best to explain the entire night to the cop, conveniently leaving out the part where we were plastered. We ended up getting rides back home, where we actually did continue the after party. The bus ended up being found 10 miles down the road, abandoned. The men who robbed us, including the driver, weren't found. When I checked Craigslist for the ad, It said it was deleted by author. If any good news comes from this experience, it said I ended up getting theft insurance on my phone, so I was able to get a new one. Kelly and I dated for the next few months, but due to her going off to college, we ended up splitting. That's really all that happened. I know one thing for sure, and that is I'll never rent a party bus off Craigslist ever again. This is something I've waited a long time to share. I'll be telling the story about how I became paralyzed from the waist down and almost lost my life. This all started at my brother's wedding, the bachelor party to be exact. But first, I'll give a brief backstory about myself. I was a firefighter in Sacramento, so I was doing a lot of physically intense work. I was always in shape. I worked out, ran, and ate as well as I could. I like to say I was in the best shape of my life. I was 34 at the time, and I have a wife and a daughter. Our lives were about as good as it could get. My wife is a nurse practitioner, and she's in love with her job. My daughter's 11, and she's already a state champion in gymnastics. So at that point in time, everything was going great. And now to add to that list, my brother had gotten engaged to be married. He picked some nice resort down in Florida, and I will say I was impressed. My brother isn't really one for super nice things. His idea of a nice dinner is a box of mac and cheese with chicken nuggets. We had the whole weekend planned to go to bars and different beaches, all transported by a party bus he hired. I don't even want to guess how much he spent, but my brother's father-in-law owned a law firm, so I was able to get the entire week off of work to go. The first night there, a huge group of our friends went to this big bar in West Palm Beach. Nothing too extraordinary happened. We all got decently drunk, walked around downtown, and our single friends tried and failed to pick up any girls. The party bus was the best part though. Since we had him booked for the weekend, we basically could have the driver take us anywhere we wanted, and we for sure took advantage of that. We brought coolers aboard for all the alcohol we'd need. I don't remember how the first night ended, because let's just say I had a few too many. But the spotty memory I do have of that night, I had the time of my life. The next Saturday morning came, and I had a hangover that could kill a small elephant. I was awoken to my brother tossing me a beer. "Hope last night you got warmed up, because today is going to be the real party," my brother told me. I replied saying I was probably going to take it easy with the drinking that day, and he called me the more explicit word for a sissy. Some brotherly fighting took place after that, and after we finished wrestling on the ground, I was up for the day. I met the group down at the hotel pool, where these dudes were seriously already having beers, at 8 a.m. I figured, why the hell not, and I grabbed one as well. Our plan was to go to the beach and day drink, and follow it up by going back downtown and bar hopping for the night. Around 9 a.m., we got back on the bus and headed for the beach. It was quite beautiful. A sunny day, 85 degrees, couldn't have been any better. I was buzzing pretty hard from the beers by the time we arrived, I can't lie. The entire day consisted of nothing but relaxation. I was having a lot of stressful days at work, and this was just what I needed. I soaked up the day, and around 5:30 we headed back toward downtown. More drinking and more of us acting like idiots ensued. At the end of our night, we boarded the bus for the final time. I had sobered up a decent amount, and I took a seat toward the back of the bus. The way the seats were set up, they faced inward towards each other like a limousine, and they didn't have seatbelts. I'm honestly not sure how that was even legal, but what do I know? I was getting fairly tired, and I could not wait to get back to bed. I remember we got on the highway, and the bus kind of swerving all over the road. I couldn't see out the window since we had the shades down, but I could feel us rocking back and forth. And then, I went to tap my brother's shoulder to ask him something, and that was the last thing I remember before waking up in the hospital. Witnesses on the scene of the crash described our bus driving erratically, drifting all around the road, until it eventually careened into a ditch and rolled several times. I must have hit my head and compressed my spine because I had broken several vertebrae on my lower back, leaving me paralyzed from the waist down. I was also cut really deep in my side by a piece of glass, and had paramedics shown up much later, I likely would have bled out. As for everyone else, minor injuries and some broken bones was the worst of it. Thankfully, everyone made it out alive. And as for the driver, it was later found out he was on some heavy narcotics when he was taken into the ambulance. Since that day, I try to keep a positive attitude on life. I'm in a wheelchair now, and my wonderful wife has done an amazing job of accommodating to our new lifestyle. I truly am so grateful for her. My brother had to postpone his marriage and waited until I had made a full recovery before he had it, since I was his best man. The wedding went well. Not the way we had planned it, but it went well. Him and his wife are very happy to this day, and I'm glad for them. I want this story to make you think about your own life, and to cherish every moment you have, because one moment you have everything, and the next it can all disappear in a flash.